Now, if you have clicked on this video, chances are you're already ahead of the 99% of people who are in a position which is similar to you, right? Because what I need you to understand is most people who are in a situation which is kind of where you are right now, they don't watch this type of content at all. They don't care about it, right? Because it's buried in their subconscious mind, but they don't really take action. So in this part of the video, which is just the start, I just want you to pat yourself on the back just because you've clicked on this video and you are interested in learning about inner work, right? Now, I've looked into this topic of inner work in the past months, right? And it's not just months, because I was looking into it before, like years ago, when I was like, let's say 15, 16. But now I've really kind of understood the topic, and I'd like to sort of share it with you from my perspective. When I looked at videos from the past of people talking about inner work or shadow work, all they used to talk about was like fluff. So in this video, even though this is going to be like a long video, I've cut out all the fluff and I've just made this video as helpful as possible, because what I want is for you to take this whole knowledge and apply it to your own life without there being any like fluff in the video or your time being wasted. So the reason why this video is long is because I want to help you get to where you want to be really fast. I also want to talk about the frameworks all these YouTubers and teachers used to use on their videos, right? Most of them just didn't work for me. And so what I've done in this video is just kind of condense all the knowledge and my own experiences, because for me, it's more about my experiences rather than something I read through a book or something I watch on a video, to really help you understand from like a personal experience rather than me reading something and then talking it here, right? So with that being said, I've really worked hard on this. I've made worksheets for each sort of section, so you can check it out after I sort of talk about each section. Now, what is the purpose of inner work in the first place? Why are we embarking on this journey of inner work, right? I want you to know that humans on average have 80,000 thoughts per day. 80,000 thoughts per day. And if you overthink like me, that's plus, right? You add overthinking thoughts. So you have 80,000 thoughts, like the average human being. Add that to the overthinking thoughts that you have, and that would be like, I don't even know, like a million. Do you know what I mean? But what I want you to know is that with your thoughts is where reality starts from, right? This room, you see everything in this room. This was built because someone had a thought and then they sort of took action on that thought, right? So you need to remember that your thoughts are literally energy, right? Your thoughts are energy, and what you think will kind of be manifested into reality because of the power that you have within your thoughts. I want you to think about all the negative thoughts that you have throughout your day. I want you to imagine almost 80,000 thoughts which are actively trying to bring your downfall, right? So we are trying to change that, and we are trying to implement more positive thoughts, but we're going to go into something much more deeper throughout the video, right? So stick to the end of this video, or if you can't, maybe watch parts of it as you go throughout your day. And I promise you, this will be one of the most beneficial videos you watch this year. Now, before we get into everything, we want to look at the main problem which we face, not only me and you, but the whole world, your friends, your family, everyone faces this, right? And this problem is the sort of foundation. This problem is like the first layer that you need to tackle in order to even embark on the journey of inner work in the first place, right? And that problem is escapism, right? And what do I mean by escapism? By escapism in two things. Number one, escaping your negative feelings, negative emotions, negative sensations. The second way you're escaping is essentially escaping through eating junk food, overindulging in video games, overindulging in texting people, overindulging in spending time on social media, watching a lot of TV shows, right? What you are doing is you're unconsciously filling yourself up because you feel this sort of emptiness within you, right? Now, what I want you to know is that escapism is made popular because now you can easily distract yourself anywhere you are, right? You can just distract yourself when you are, let's say, facing with some emotional distress. You can turn on the TV and you can watch your favorite show. Does that mean the feelings inside of you are gone? No, you're basically putting like a mask on them, a layer. But you need to realize that they are going to reveal themselves one day anyways. So why not just tackle them now when they are fresh, instead of letting it build up and it influencing your subconscious behaviors? because I want you to know that whatever you hold inside of yourself, right, is manifested into reality. Because I want you to remember that what you hold inside will be sort of projected outside. So the reason why you're going through all these negative things is because you have unresolved negative stuff inside of you. And once you resolve that, the outside will be good, right? Now, the way you process these feelings, before I go into it, let me just make another point, which is all your subconscious feelings that you have, all the subconscious hidden things, right? Things which you suppress, or even sometimes things that get repressed. What you need to understand from that is you basically are in charge of those emotions. They are not in charge of you, right? Now, the reason why we go towards escapism is because it's much more easier to us, right? Instead of facing our actual feelings, it's much more easier to turn on a TV and watch our favorite show. But those feelings are still there. It's way easier to just go on your phone and doom scroll for hours and hours, because there's no sort of like a, oh, you're up to date now sort of screen. You just kind of go and go and go, and it's like an infinite sort of scroll, right? So what I want you to know is that it's completely normal, and you need to understand that you shouldn't be mad at this, right? Because it's not your fault. The reason why escapism and distractions are popular is because the things which are around you are optimized so much to the point where they are meant to keep you hooked. They are meant to keep you addicted, just like drugs, right? All these social engineers with these apps and all the, I don't even know, they're not even nutritionists, but you know, the people that make food and stuff, their sole purpose is, like the processed food I'm talking about, the sole purpose is to keep you hooked on that and to keep you running on that like a rat, right? And when you are constantly indulging in the same thing, it's very difficult for you to sort of pull back and realize that you're going in the wrong route, right? What you basically need to remember is when you're dealing with escapism, you don't need to see it as sort of like a negative thing, because there's positives to it as well. Because now you realize that ultimately, even if I seek towards escapism, I know, like now I know now that I'm hiding something, and I need to bring it to my conscious awareness, right? So what I want you to do right now is don't feel mad for the way you are feeling right now, right? Just look at the feelings which you are feeling right now, because a lot of the times you might have this as well. You realize, right, you're just starting to be more present, but then you realize you're having thoughts and you get mad at yourself for not being present anymore. You need to understand that getting mad at yourself itself is a feeling, and you need to watch that instead of being that, right? So whatever feeling you feel right now, just know that it's not you, and you're basically experiencing that. And when you take it into that sort of perspective, you're not really engaged in that. So even when you get thoughts of, let's say, escapism, right? Let me give you this sort of gem. Even when you get thoughts of escapism, let me just get it down here for you so you can understand better. Let's say you get thoughts of escaping through food. Let me just draw like a chicken wing. I don't even know if it looks like one. But let's say this is your brain and you get a thought of, oh, I want this chicken wing, right? What you can do is you can have this sort of conscious awareness. What you have is, you know what, before you used to be like, oh, I get the thought, I get it, right? Now what you can do is, instead of getting to it, you go back to your presence, which is here, right? Instead of going to the food or going to the distraction, what you can do is go back to your awareness and be aware of that thought in the first place, right? So it could look like me wanting to play video games, right? Now, before I used to just play video games, right? But now I basically look at my conscious awareness and I look at myself wanting to do that desire. And instead of actually doing it, I just watch it. I just watch the desire go by like a thought. I just watch, okay, I'm feeling this way. I want to play games. Okay, I'm feeling this way. I want to play GTA 5. Okay, I'm feeling this way. I want to play Spider-Man 2. Damn. Do you know what I mean? I can think of those thoughts, but I'm not really indulging in them. Now, at the start, this is very difficult. This is like advanced level, right? So it's very difficult to follow right now, but just don't get mad if you relapse into your past habits, because it's normal. And the relapse is there because it wants to teach you how to be even better than where you are right now. So instead of being reactive, just observe everything that comes through, because just pretend that your brain is a kid and it's asking for you for like chocolate and stuff, instead of giving it the chocolate and you know it's bad for it, just watch the reaction and don't act on it, right? Now, this is one of the most important concepts which you can learn throughout this video, and the concept is about core beliefs, right? Now, what are core beliefs? Core beliefs are basically beliefs which we build in our childhood, right? Or when we are growing up, because we see things around us, we pick up things really quickly. And when we are a kid, we are basically like a sponge of information, right? So whatever we see, we take that into us, right? And so our core beliefs are basically beliefs about ourselves or about the world, and they may be right or they may be wrong, because we all go through a subjective journey. And the reason why we all have different core beliefs is because of how we act, right? And so basically, I've created a Google Doc for you, and the link for that is going to be in the description. It's going to be called Core Beliefs. So you can click on that and do the sort of worksheet with me, right? So I'm just going to give you an example what core beliefs even means in this section of the video. So you see all these lines, right? It gets like shorter and shorter and shorter until it gets to like a little tiny point, right? The reason is because let's say something triggers you right now, right? Let's say someone calls you like stupid, or someone calls you dumb or something. That can trace back to a whole new layer of one belief which you created in your childhood. And the reason why you are even sort of taking offense to that in the first place is because you remember that same feeling that you felt when you had this previous experience where you formed that belief, right? And this could be formed when, let's say, here is like when your classmate or someone called you stupid on the street or something. And down here is when your dad called you stupid for not placing the torch in the right direction when he was fixing the car in the garage, right? It could be very specific like that. Now, to figure out a core belief in the first place, right, is to understand what triggers you. Now, what triggers me is different to what triggers you, right? So we need to find this base layer first, right? When you identify that you are feeling triggered, you can basically trace down to the core belief itself. So for example, let's say something makes me feel upset, right? Or something makes you feel upset. What you can do is take that and ask yourself questions and prompt yourself. Like, you can basically guide yourself through questions, which I'm gonna give you in a minute. You can ask yourself those questions and you can basically go down to the core belief. And now you have the ability to change that core belief into something else and ultimately form a new core belief where you have new experiences, and experiences that you actually desire, instead of things which just happen because of your unconscious conditioning in childhood, right? So what you can do, right, when you feel triggered, there's two questions you can ask yourself. And I learned this through Teal Swan's YouTube channel, right? What you can instead do is, instead of getting triggered by it and letting it run your life, you can use this triggeredness as an opportunity, excuse my words, you can use this triggeredness as an opportunity to basically go to your core belief and address that in the first place, right? So basically, I just got it on my laptop and I'm going to read it out to you. So let's say the first sort of thing which triggered you was, I'm going out for a party, but my outfit looks bad, right? That's the thing which triggers you. But then you can ask yourself these two questions. Now, the question is, if this was 100% true, why is it so bad? And what does it mean to me or mean about me, right? So if this was 100% true, why is it so bad? And what does it mean to me or mean about me? So like I said in my example, I wrote, I'm going out for a party, but my outfit looks pretty bad. If this was 100% true, why is it so bad? And what does it mean to me or mean about me? The answer is, I look like a clown. People are not going to like me, or even worse, they're going to laugh at me. Now you go a layer deeper. If this was 100% true, why is it so bad? And what does that mean to me or mean about me? I will not be respected. I will feel engulfed in shame. I will feel like an outcast in a social setting. If this was 100% true, why is it so bad? And what does it mean to me or mean about me? No one loves me. They only care about me, keeping them company. If this was 100% true, why is it so bad? And what does that mean to me or mean about me? I am unlovable. Why do I even try it, right? So this was basically an example which I created just to show you how deep your core beliefs can go. It started from, I look bad at a party or an event, and it went to, I feel unlovable. So Everything that this person was doing was through the lens of I am unlovable, but they weren't really conscious of that, right? Maybe they learned that because of how their parents treated them in their childhood, or maybe how their teachers or their peers around them, how they treated them, right? So what you can do right now, I've created a Google Doc for you, and I've used the same example as I did in this video. So you can click on that link and fill it out yourself and see the difference you feel after figuring out core belief. And now to the section of how can you actually change that belief, right? You identified it now, but how do you change that, right? The way you change it is by creating your new belief, right? And the reason you create a new belief is because you don't no longer want to run on that same belief where you are unconsciously sort of bringing your own downfall, right? So you bring a new belief into it. So let's say this one was I'm unlovable. You say, you know what, I am lovable. And now what you can do is you can look for proof, even like tiny little signs that you are lovable. It could be someone holding a door for you, right? It could be someone trying to like tap you up. Yo, what's up? You know what I'm saying? It could be as simple as that, right? Now, this is very difficult because I'm just sort of speaking out to you. In like actual experience, it's very tricky, but for you, I think it's easy for you, right? So when you keep on doing this habit, you basically got to understand that, you know what, even though this is tricky and Tio said it's tricky, I'm able to do it, right? You need to have that belief of, you know what, even though this is difficult, I'm able to do it, right? So with that being said, what you basically need to understand is that when you create a new belief, you need to have this sort of looking out for proof sort of stuff. You're like a scavenger looking for those little tiny details of why you actually deserve love, or anything that you are using in your context, why you actually deserve it, right? So with that being said, I hope this section helped you. Let's go on to the next one. Now let's get into the habit list which I've created for you. Now the first sort of practice I recommend you doing is prayer. Prayer is one of the most powerful tools you can use throughout your day. Now, I don't know if you believe in God or if you don't believe in God, or if you believe God exists, but you know, you have all these beliefs. I don't really care what belief you have, but just a simple act of muttering some words to a higher power that you believe in can absolutely change the way, not only the way you live, but the certainty and the poise that you have when you carry on with your day, right? Now, I used to be, when I was growing up, right, I didn't believe in God because of the society around me, or because of, you know, like YouTube and like, oh, atheism was kind of popular. I was kind of on the same boat as those people, but I was a kid. I wasn't using my own critical thinking. But as I grew older, I looked at the trees around me. I looked at the human biology and how it's so similar to nature, right? I was like, ain't no way we are not created by something. We can't just spawn here out of nowhere, right? So, and after that, I started believing in God, right? And so prayer is one of the most important tools, but I want you to sort of listen to what I'm saying right now, right? You need to use prayer the right way, because there can be ways you're using prayer which is not 100% sort of beneficial to your life, right? So what I do, right, is when I wake up, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. And that could be anything in my life. It could be the meal my mom cooked for me yesterday. It could be the friend that I hanged out with yesterday. It could be my crayons. Do you know what I mean? Like my crayons that I used to have as a kid. I could be grateful for anything. And it's honestly something which sort of boosts your day from the start, right? But sometimes I don't write it down. Sometimes I just go outside in the sun when I wake up for the circadian rhythm thing to sort of work for sleep. And I just sort of mutter words to myself of how I'm grateful for the sun, how I'm grateful for the things around me, how I'm grateful for my room and stuff like that. So if you use that to your advantage, and if you just sort of imagine yourself doing that right now, you see the power that it has, right? You see the power that gratitude could have in your life if you use it on a consistent basis. So I'd like to give credits to Carl Rom for giving me this sort of idea of what I'm speaking right now. So all credits to him. I'm just using his idea for this video. So what I want you to remember is when you're asking material things to God, so let's say you're asking for a house, you're asking for a family, you're asking for, you know, a good job, you don't really ask for these things. Yeah, cool, you can ask for these things, right? But on top of that, you need to ask for the courage and the sort of virtues that you may need to have in order to be able to, even enjoy those things. Because if you don't have the capacity to handle the things which God gives you, you're not going to be able to handle those things, right? So it's basically about asking for the strength. If you're going through a hard time right now, it's asking God for strength, right? It's not asking, oh, I wish times were easier. Oh, you can ask that, right? Cool. But you need to ultimately ask God to give you the strength to go through what you're going through right now. Because ultimately, the reason you're going through this is because this is a part of your test. And your test is unique to you, right? My test is sort of different. Your test is different. Your friend's test is different. Your dad's test was different. We all go through tests, but the ultimate thing is you need to remember that tests are unique and subject to each individual because we all go through different experiences. So in a way, what I go through might be like something easy to you, but what you go through be something easy for me. But that doesn't mean it's not a test for us, right? It's a unique test for each of us. And all we need to do is go through it. And through prayer, we are asking to God that we may get the strength and the courage and all the other virtues to go through the test we are going through right now. And so with that being said, another point I would like to make is when you are praying, right, you could do this either in the morning, at night, whatever time suits you, in like a quiet place. So I probably prefer the morning because it's very quiet and I like it. So what you can do is just pray to God, just talk to God as like a normal human being, and just kind of not think your words, but actually speak your words. Now, I don't want you to speak it loud so people can hear stuff, but you can just mutter the words to yourself, right? The most powerful thing, and the thing which most people sort of overlook, is when they're actually saying the words or they're just kind of thinking the words in their head, right? I want you to actually say the words as you are talking. Right. Now, another habit which really helped me is journaling, right? I started journaling about 4 years ago now, and it's a habit which has stuck to me. And the reason why it stuck to me is because it's the only habit which I do, which is actually able to calm me down when I'm like in a stressed mood, or I'm just able to make decisions. If I had no knowledge of journaling, I don't even know if I would be making this video right now, right? It goes that deep, because this one habit has actually changed the way I just look at everything and the way I perceive everything to be, because it's just my own thoughts on a piece of paper, and I'm able to look at that and not take it too seriously. You know what I mean? Now, if you're a beginner at journaling, right, I just want you to ask yourself questions which no one else asks about themselves, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a sort of document you can use. So the link is gonna be in the description, and you can check it out and sort of write your own answers to it. So at the start, you need some sort of prompts, because you can't just have a blank piece of paper like that, board, and you just, what do I write here? Do you know what I mean? So I'm gonna give you questions which you can answer for yourself. And at the start, it's good to sort of use those questions to sort of have a framework of what you're answering and where you are heading with those answers. Now, where can you journal anyways? Now, I've seen that it's more of a feminine thing to do, but it's more important for you as a man to have a journal yourself, because all the great people you see right now in history, Marcus Aurelius, Winston Churchill, they all had journals. And the reason why these are powerful men is because they were able to sort of highlight their thoughts in a way which really made sense to them, and they weren't really entangled in their head so much, right? And so where can you even journal though, right? You can journal on a book that you can have for yourself, which no one else sees, or you can just use your notes app on your phone and lock the note after you use it, right? But I'm here to the point where even if I have my journal, let's say this was a journal, right? Even if I just leave it here and people open it and see it and they get shocked, I'm not really too bothered by it, because it's like, yo, you just kind of seen who I am now. At the start, what you need to do is use a notes app, or you can use like a piece of paper or like a small notebook that you can sort of buy for yourself, right? Now for a bonus part in this video, I learned this from a YouTuber called Julian himself on YouTube, so you can check him out there. It's called the Trail of Whys, right? Now, the reason why we use these prompts of the Trail of Whys, which is basically asking yourself questions of which no one else asks themselves, right? It's like, it could be, why am I not good enough? Why don't I deserve love? Why don't I deserve success? Now, on the surface level, You're gonna be like, oh, of course I deserve success. Of course I deserve love. What's wrong with you? Right? You're gonna be thinking like that. But what I want you to remember is that we are looking at the unconscious side of yourself and why it doesn't think it deserves love, or why it thinks it doesn't deserve success. And the reason why we're looking at this is because you have unconscious thoughts and desires and sort of baselines which hold you back there. So the reason you self-sabotage is not because you hate yourself. The reason you self-sabotage is because you hate yourself unconsciously. And if you make that conscious, you can change it, right? And the reason why we all have these unconscious things is because of the childhood patterns we grew up in, or the way we were treated when we were kids. We saw that, oh, this must be love, but it was actually abuse. And now you're using the same tactics onto you, right? So without going too deep into that, I've created a worksheet for you, and the link for that is going to be in the description. It's called the Trail of Whys. So you can basically click on that and answer those questions in full honesty, because ain't no one looking at that, right? So once you finish this video, or you can just pause it and complete that right now, you can basically ask yourself like these deep, dark questions which no one else asks themselves. And you can sort of move past those people, and you're basically much more in tune with yourself than those other people, right? Another habit which you can do is meditation or silence, right? Because when you do this sort of practice of meditation, watching your own breath, watching your own self react to things, you are ultimately able to have more control over yourself, right? Now, I started meditating about 4 years ago, and I've been really consistent with the habit. And what I would recommend you doing if you are a beginner is start with guided meditations, right? Start with like even 30 seconds of guided meditations, or 5 minutes, right? 30 seconds, 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, I don't really care. Start slow. And the reason why we're starting slow is because we are going to build that foundation over time, right? Because let me tell you something. When I meditated for the first time, or for the first 7 days, I was like, bro, this is a shit habit. This has nothing in it. And I was about to like, you know what, ditch it. But as I kept going on, as I kept experiencing more things, and I just kept sticking to it, there came to a moment where my experience was so different to when I didn't meditate, that I was just able to have more control over myself, or it was just a whole different texture, a whole different layer of experience when I meditated as opposed to when I didn't meditate. So even after, if I miss, let's say, a week of meditation and I just hop on back to it for another week, yo, the difference I feel is crazy, right? When I'm talking to people, I'm able to hold their icons. I'm able to hold a conversation without really zooming past or checking my phone. Do you know what I mean? Like, have you ever seen those people that you're talking to them, right? You're like, yo, yeah, good day, yeah. And you're talking to them, but their mood is somewhere else. They're like, yeah, I remember, yeah. Like, I just want to slap the shit out of them, man. Do you know what I mean, bro? You know what I'm saying? Let's calm down. Do you know what I mean? But you understand me, right? So you don't want to be one of those people that are like talking 1 second, and the next second they're like, oh yeah, I remember you that, bro. Right? Because you're ultimately kind of disrespecting the person you're talking to, and you're not even paying attention to the conversation in the first place. So your attention is here, there. You know what I mean? You're not focusing on anything which is beneficial to you right now. You're not focusing on the person you're talking to, right? You're not able to take in the experience to its fullest capacity without really losing yourself in your presence. So another sort of bonus habit which you can add to this is something called self-inquiry, right? Now, self-inquiry is basically seeing and understanding and feeling that you are not the thinker itself, right? Now, this is much more deeper, but it's understanding that you are not the thoughts which you have. You are not the thinker itself. You are basically consciousness, which is experiencing your thoughts arise, go through your head, and go out of your consciousness, right? So basically, it's about this practice of witnessing everything, even your body, right? Witnessing everything. You are consciousness, and you are looking at everything from this sort of a external perspective. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but it basically means that you are not taking things so personally anymore. And everything which you see, your clothes, your sort of, your body, you don't take it so personally anymore. What that helps with, it doesn't really let you identify with any of these transient things, because you can get old one day, your hair could be gone one day, right? your your face your face could get like 1,000 wrinkles one day. Does that mean you are your face? Does that mean you were your body all along? No, it basically sort of externalizes who you are, your self-worth, to what people see on the outside, right? So that wraps up the whole habit list. I kept it very short so you can basically use like the 3 habits instead of you having like 14 habits which you can do. Because let's be honest, you're gonna see that 14 and be like, nah, it's not for me. So try practicing these 3 first and then level up in those, because these are your foundations of the inner work that you are doing, right? Now, if you are not really able to practice these habits, what I've done for you is that I've made like a calendar open so you can talk to me personally one-on-one, and we can talk about how to actually implement those habits in your life. Because if you are not able to implement those habits, chances are you will not be able to succeed or go to where you want to go in life, because these are your base layer foundations of your internal dialogue, of your inner work, right? And if you're not able to master yourself, you are not able to master the things around you. You are not able to master your craft. You're not able to master the relationships that you have with the people around you, right? So if you think that this could be like a difficult path, so if you think that you may be like on the fence or kind of struggling on it, I've made like a calendar in the description. You can just basically click on the link, book a call with me, and we can talk on there, right? So with that being said, let's go on to the next section of the video. Now let's talk about the inner critic, right? Now I'm sure you have this inner voice inside of you which is constantly telling you that you're not doing things good enough, right? And let's say you wake up and it's like, oh, you wake up late, you could have woken up earlier. You get out of bed and you eat breakfast and like, your breakfast could have been a little bit healthier. And let's say you're running and you're approaching, let's say, a person. You're like, oh, bro, you kind of stink right now, man. Don't approach that person right now. And it's making your life a constant misery, right? And the inner critic is basically the voice in your head, which is constantly critiquing stuff around you. And when it's constantly critiquing stuff around you, let's say you're in your room and it's like, your room is not clean enough. You'll walk into your kitchen and like, oh, look at the mess you made there, right? And it's constantly active and it's critiquing every action you do, and you just feel tired. You're like, bro, what do I need to do to get you out of my head, right? Now, to address it, where does it even come from, right? Where does the inner critic even like come from in the first place? Now, where it comes from is your childhood, right? It comes from your past authority figures, right? And what you need to understand is that your authority figures when you're like a child, let's say it's your parents, right? The reason why you have this critiquing part of yourself in your head is because your parents were the same way. They critiqued every little stuff that you did. It was either that whatever you did wasn't good enough, or what you did was good, but you could have done more, right? You could have done more. And now you need to realize, yeah, doing more is not a bad thing, right? But when you are constantly bombarded by the same feelings of you could have done more, you could have done more, you could have done more, it gets kind of tiring to be like, yo, listen, I've done my best today, right? But you need to realize that all these voices are not you. They are basically the voice that has been conditioned since your childhood. It demands more and more of you. Now, when I put it that way, it doesn't seem bad, but when you are in a constant state of that same voice telling you what you could have done better and what you should have done and why you are not good enough, it's not a good feeling. It's not a good voice to have in your head, right? What you need to realize is it's not your voice. It's been these years and years of conditioning, which is right now sort of showcasing to you of where you should be or what you should be doing, right? Does that mean it's 100% true? No, because it's basically what other people, the values other people place on you, or the sort of pressures that other people place on you, and now you have to live up to them. But what you need to realize is these are sometimes unhealthy standards to live up to, because when you are chasing other people's standards, ultimately you are failing yourself and you are failing your own potential. So it comes from your past authority figures, maybe your teachers or your parents, them telling you constantly that you should have done more, you could have done better, right? They expect you to be more and more and more perfect, even though you did the best of your ability, right? And so one way I've dealt with it myself is basically being more aware of it, right? Instead of just seeing it as my thoughts and be like, oh yeah, I shouldn't approach that person because I'm nervous. Yeah, you're right. Instead of constantly sort of making myself into that voice, I created a distinction, a separation between me and the voice. And I've kind of built a relationship with that voice as well. And the reason why I did that is because you can't really push that voice away, because it's an inherent part of you growing up. So instead, you can just build up a relationship with it. You can just ask it, yo, why are you feeling that way? Why are you feeling like we should be doing this or we should be doing that, right? Instead of going into the selfish level of just pushing it away, we embrace it and ask ourselves, what is it trying to tell us, right? And when we build this relationship with the inner critic, what we need to understand is that it's basically telling us something which we sort of abandoned in our childhood, and now it's poking back to us, right? So when I'm talking about building a relationship with the inner critic, I've heard it from a podcast from Man Talks, and it's hosted by Connor Beaton. So he talks about building a relationship with that sort of part of you. Instead of pushing it away, you embrace it, and you basically affirm to yourself that, you know what, I'm not that part, but I'm here to listen to what it says. I'm not here to do what it says all the time, but I'm just listening to what it says, right? Because when you are constantly in this mode of critiquing everything around you, you could be sitting in your room, you're like, why is it raining today? Why is it so sunny? What's wrong with the weather? You know what I mean? Like, you could be in your head so much that you don't even realize that it's your inner critic and it's not you, right? So with that being said, what you basically need to understand is that you need to be aware of it, and that's kind of like half the problem gone, because now it's like, yo, I can see my inner critic and it's not me. And you can build a relationship with it where you try to understand the place it's coming from and not really entangle yourself into that and believing that you are your inner critic, right? So with that being said, let's go to the next section of the video. Now, last but not least, I want you to learn how to validate your own emotions, right? Because it's a skill which no one has taught us. And I had to learn it through my own, by going through some tough, difficult challenges, and also just by researching what to do in each scenario. And what I'm doing right here in this section is like a very important bit, because I'm a person who has gone through this myself for the past years, right? And I'm here to sort of share my knowledge with you about this topic, right? Most of us grow physically, but we don't grow in our internal state, right? Our internal state of operation still stays the same. And what I mean by internal state is your emotional intelligence, right? Intelligence. Hope you can read that. But all we have learned is, oh, 2 + 2 is 4. And what they teach you in school, right? Which is not really important when it comes to dealing with your internal system. What we have been taught is basically stuff that is not really that important when it comes to taking care of oneself, right? So you are the same person who you were when you were a kid, but you've grown physically, and you have like the same sort of sense of perception and your same internal state, because you haven't really learned how to manage with the emotions that you are feeling right now. What do people tell you instead of actually dealing with the emotions that you feel, right? Let's say you're in like a very tough spot right now, right? What do people tell you? They tell you to change that emotions, change the way you feel by just think more positively, or change the way you feel, right? Just out of nowhere. You can't really do that. If you ever heard that advice, I know you felt like, bro, you don't know what's going on, right? People tell you to just change it, or just escape from it and do something else, or they tell you to behave like an adult. Then in reality, you're not really able to have that capacity of your internal state being actually something beneficial, because you haven't really progressed in terms of your internal state. So what if you are actually going through some tough scenario right now and you need to resort from it, right? Now, the first thing which you're gonna do is, I'm gonna just put it down here, is that you need to surrender. Now, depending on the context which you hear this word at, what I mean by surrender is by not changing the feeling, or not changing anything the way you feel, right? Or not suddenly introducing positive thoughts and stuff like that. Because the reason why you're going through what you're going through right now is because if you don't go through it, you're not able to process through it. When you're not able to process through it, it resides in your subconscious. And then when it resides in your subconscious, it gets poked at by random people. When it gets poked at by random people, it arises out of a sudden, and all of a sudden you're not really you anymore. You are the feeling that was subconsciously buried within you, right? So what I want you to know right now is, whenever you're having like a shit day, whenever you're having things that not going your way, instead of changing them or acting on them or reacting to them, surrender to them. Just be like, yo, this is life, this is what it is. Instead of fixing it and dealing with it, I'm just gonna surrender to it and work my way out of with what I have within this current scenario and this current context, right? Because when you are operating at this paradigm of, what, things are gonna be thrown at me, and my job is to basically handle those things which are thrown at me, you're not really entangled in what should have been happening and what should go perfectly. When you surrender to things, it becomes much more easier for you to actually go on and do what you want, instead of thinking of something and you're like, yo, I should have done this, I should do this, I should do this. Instead of thinking all of that, you can basically surrender your focus to what you can control right now, instead of worrying about what you can't control. Now, the second way is to tell yourself that anyone else would feel the same way. Now, I can't really write all of that here, but you know what I mean, right? Anyone else would feel the same way if they were in your exact same shoes, exact same scenario. They would feel the same thing. And the reason why we're doing this is because we want to validate the way we feel. And we don't really want to make it that we are the only people in the world that feel the feeling, right? Because if we limit ourselves to that sort of level of thinking, what happens is we tend to isolate ourselves. I've seen it myself, so that's why I'm kind of talking about it right now, right? When I had like a difficult emotion that I was dealing with, I used to think, no one understands this, so I might as well just kind of isolate myself from everyone, right? And the reason why this didn't work is because I was much more awkward, or I was much more distant in conversations, right? What I did instead was tend to validate my emotions based on other people would feel the same way if they were in my position, right? If someone else were to wake up in the same position as me, see the world the same way I do, they would probably feel the same way. So the second part of this process is, what we're doing is basically validating our feelings, telling ourselves, affirming to ourselves that anyone else would feel the same way. So you're not really dealing with the feeling alone anymore, right? You have someone else to actually go through it with you, or you know that it's common. So it's not really something much more daunting now. Now, the third part of this process is to separate your child self from your adult self, or where you are right now, right? Because when you create this sort of thing, you basically have this sort of protector figure and your vulnerable figure, right? So what you can do is, when you are feeling an emotion, that is basically the child inside of you crying out. That's the child inside of you being excited, right? And let's say these are like the emotions that the child is feeling. Instead of you thinking that it's you feeling them, you look at it that your inner child is feeling those emotions, right? And what you can do instead is, instead of thinking I am these emotions, I am feeling these emotions, you can basically place it onto the child inside of you having those emotions. And so let's say the child is feeling some sort of upset. They are upset by something that happened, right? Instead of you thinking I'm sad, you think the child inside of me is sad. If your younger self who was sad was in front of you right now, let's say you're like 5 years old, would you be like, yo, what are you doing, man? Grow up. Why are you crying? Do you know what I mean? Would you be like that? Or would you actually be able to embrace that younger self in your arms and be like, yo, everything's gonna be okay. I'm here to protect you. And that's the same way you have to be with yourself when you are going through these tough feelings. You need to separate your protector self and your vulnerable self, and tell your vulnerable self, yourself, that, you know what, I'm here to protect you through whatever you're going through. When you make that distinction, you are basically reassuring yourself that, you know what, everything's going to be okay. I'm here to protect you. And it creates this sort of depth in relationships when it comes to yourself and understanding your past and understanding your own experiences. Because let's be honest, we haven't really been able to grow up in the best possible conditions when we were in childhood, right? What we're trying to do right now is learn those patterns and adapt to newer patterns which we're going to create, right? And so with that being said, even the fourth one is kind of related to this one. So let's say you are in like a difficult scenario, right? You are feeling upset, but at the same time you have to continue with some work, or you've got some of your family visiting, and all of a sudden you can't really be there for yourself when you are doing this emotional sort of process, right? What you can do right now instead is you can affirm to your child self that you will be back, right? Instead of being like, oh, I'm feeling sad, let me just continue with my work. You're going to be not able to focus on the work in the first place because you're all in this wrong vibrational energy. When you are in this wrong vibrational energy, the essence of your energy will transfer through your craft. And when your craft is of low vibrational energy, chances are people will not be able to like it, right? Like it, feel like they like it, right? So what will happen is your craft will not be of essence, right? So what you can do instead is, instead of focusing your energy solely on the craft, and when you're feeling negative, you can affirm to your child self that, you know what, everything will be okay. Everything is going to be okay. I'm going to be back. I'm going to be dealing with you, right? When you sort of reassure yourself in that way, when you have family visiting, you're like, yo, I'm going to come back to you. It's all going to be fine. You are able to step into the interactions and the conversations and the work into much more of a flow, because now you know that even though I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling upset, I'm still going to be paid back for myself, right? So with that being said, I hope this whole concept helped you. If you want more help, I offer one-to-one coaching, and the link for that is going to be in the description. You can book a call with me and we can talk about what you are going through, right? Make sure you complete the worksheets, which I'll leave you in the description, because that is most of the work which you're going to be needing in this video. Make sure you drop a like, press the subscribe, and share with people who you think it will be beneficial with, right? This video took me about 4 months to make, I would say, and I hope you found it really beneficial. So with that being said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.